All right, let's dive into a story that honestly sounds completely made up, but I promise you it is 100% real. It's got a general, a president's son, and some of the wildest threats you've ever seen on social media. You're going to want to hear this. So let's just cut right to the chase. Did a top-ranking Ugandan general really threaten to invade a whole country over Twitter? I mean, it sounds absolutely absurd, right? Well, you better believe it because the headlines are actually true. But the real story here is way more complex and, frankly, a whole lot weirder than just a simple threat. So let's break down exactly what was going on. First things first, to even begin to understand this, you gotta know who we're talking about. So who exactly is this tweeting general? Okay, so this is General Muhoozi Kainerugaba. And he's not just any general. He's the son of Uganda's president. And a lot of people think he's being groomed to take over one day. But he's really famous for his nickname, the Tweeting General. And yeah, he earned it by constantly posting these unfiltered, totally shocking, and super controversial things online. It's kind of his trademark. Okay, now for the main event. Let's get into the absolutely bizarre demands and threats that got the whole world's attention and probably left a few diplomats just scratching their heads. It all started with this. Just out of the blue, he posts a demand for $1 billion. And as if that wasn't enough, a wife, the most beautiful Turkish woman. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. This alone is pretty out there, but trust me, he was just getting warmed up. So yeah, after dropping that bombshell online, he didn't just log off. Nope, he decided to up the ante big time, turning what seemed like a weird joke into what looked like a direct international ultimatum. And there it is, the tweet that went everywhere. If my demands are not met, I will invade and conquer Turkey. Just like that, a full-on military threat from a general to another country, all packed into a single tweet. But here's the thing you have to understand. This was not the first time he'd pulled a stunt like this. And that right there is the key to this whole thing. This threat against Turkey, it wasn't some random, isolated moment of madness. No way. It was part of a very deliberate, very clear pattern of his. Here's a perfect example. Before he set his sights on Turkey, he was going after Italy's Prime Minister, Giorgia Meloni. His offer? Get this, 100 cows as a dowry. And the threat if she refused? An attack on Rome. See the pattern? Bizarre offer, followed by military threat. It's his whole playbook. Okay, so with all these threats flying around, you gotta wonder, was the world actually on the brink of some bizarre war? Or was there something else entirely going on here? Let's get into what was really happening. So the short answer, absolutely not. This was never, ever a real threat. On a diplomatic level, nobody took it seriously. I mean, the Turkish government just flat out ignored it. They knew what was up. It was just seen as the online antics of one guy. A very powerful guy for sure, but still. The general is famous for using these kinds of wild tweets just to get his name in the headlines. But hey, just because the threat wasn't real, that doesn't mean there weren't any consequences. Oh no, the general's long history of controversy has led to some, let's just say, very strange outcomes. And this just shows you how wild the situation is. So for making all these crazy tweets, his own father, the president, remember, actually removes him from his job as commander of the army. Seems like a punishment, right? Well, not so fast. In the exact same breath, he promotes him to the rank of a full general. So he gets a demotion and a promotion at the same time. It's this bizarre move that a lot of people think was just public discipline while privately keeping him on the fast track to power. When you look at his track record, it really puts it all into perspective. You've got the infamous Kenya threat, where he boasted his army could capture Nairobi in just 2 weeks. Then, of course, the weird offer and threat to Italy. And that brings us to the Turkey ultimatum. When you see them all lined up like this, you can't miss the pattern. It's clear as day. And, while the threats to Italy and Turkey were mostly just laughed off, the one against Kenya, that was a different story. That one hit a little too close to home for comfort. It actually sparked a pretty major diplomatic mess, and the Ugandan government had to issue a formal public apology to its neighbor. So yeah, sometimes his words have very, very real consequences. So after all of that, what's the big takeaway here? What does this all really tell us? Okay, here's what you really need to remember. First, this was not a declaration of war. It was the work of one very high-profile, very powerful guy who knows how to stir things up online. But what this story really does is shine a huge spotlight on the strange new world we're in, where the serious, buttoned-up business of international politics is happening right alongside complete and utter social media chaos. It turns out they can both exist at the exact same time. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question. When you see a general tweeting like this, is it all just a joke? Is it some kind of weird, calculated strategy to stay in the news? Or is it something more? Maybe a little preview of a very strange future, where it gets harder and harder to tell the difference between real diplomacy and just trolling.